Hey there everybody and welcome back. In today's video I'm going to be walking you through the basic setup and installation for your codelessfix.com app. So basically if you've purchased an app from codelessfix.com, I'm going to be walking you through the setup. So this video is going to be broken down into a couple pieces. The first part is going to be setting up Firebase. If you do not have a database on the back end that you need to use, you can skip this part. However, I do still recommend you take a look just in case you're interested in getting a database set up for your application. We are using Firebase because they do have a free plan and they have a ton of integration or just pre-built functionality with Appgyver, or I should say Appgyver has pre-built functionality with Firebase. So we're going to walk through the setup for Firebase first. Then we're going to walk through importing your app into Appgyver. We're going to then cover any basics that you need to know about modifying the app, and then we will finalize by showing how to build the app and then just cover basics of getting that app, whether you want to say deployed or uploaded. So let's go ahead and jump straight in. First things first, you're going to need to head over to firebase.google.com. You can ignore the console part. If you have not already set this up, you're going to need to click a Getting Started link first. So what we're going to do is, again, go to firebase.google.com. All you need is a Gmail account, so you can get that set up. And then you'll land into a dashboard similar to this. I have these 3 tests projects here. Yours will likely be missing any projects unless you've used it previously. So basically all you need to do to get started is click Add Project. Now at this point, I highly recommend naming your project something very unique for security reasons. So in this case, I'll just add in some random letters. Although if you understand the security side, you can name this whatever you feel comfortable with. Basically, just make sure that you're managing security for your organization. I do not cover security in these videos. I will show you how to get started, but I will not cover security rules and policies primarily for liability reasons. So that's going to be on you and your company to figure out. So we will go ahead and click Continue. Now you can enable Google Analytics if you're interested. It's entirely up to you. I'll set it up by default and choose the default account for Firebase. Then I will click Create Project. Now this process will take between 1 to 2 minutes. It does not take very long. So while this is getting set up, I want to show a help article really quick because I've seen when creating new projects, sometimes you'll land in a different environment from what I will be doing in this video. Now this video is going to be very, very easy to follow, so do not get scared by any of this documentation. All you need to know is if when we get into Firestore, your screen doesn't look the same as mine, you're probably in data store mode. And you're going to want to get into native mode, which is what I'm covering in this video. Now, if you prefer data store mode, you should be able to do most of what I'm doing in this video there, but I have not validated that. So basically all I want to note is you can Google how to get into native mode in Firestore. Make sure that you're using a valid and legitimate link, but it's really easy. It's just 1 or 2 buttons that you click, and then you'll jump into the native mode if you're in data store mode. So the article is at cloud.google.com/datastore/docs/firestore-or-datastore. So we're going to close this link. Head back over to our project and you'll see the project is now ready. So this is going to be the dashboard you'll land in. Over time, the dashboard could change in appearance, but the functionality is what we're after. So first things first, in the top left-hand corner, there's a build section. We're going to choose authentication first. Now you only need this if you plan on having users log into your app with a username and password. So we'll click the Get Started option because ours will be using this. And then we will choose the email password option and click Enable. Now, I do want to note again that you're going to be controlling the security piece through Firebase and through Appgyver, so make sure that you're monitoring and doing everything in accordance with whatever rules, regulations, laws, etc. Now, the next thing we're going to be doing is going over to Build. And then here we will click Firestore Database. Now in this case, you'll see I land to this page here. If your page looks a little different and you have a note about this is only set up for data store mode or something like that, That's where you're going to follow the link I covered previously and get your Firestore database set up in native mode. Once you do that, if you have not already created a database, you'll click Create. If you have created one, it'll already be there. Now, we are starting in production mode. You'll see we have security here. I'll show you how to change that in a second. And we are going to choose a location that's going to be closest to the majority of our users. The idea there is the closer to the server, the lower the response time. So it's going to respond more quickly. Then we'll click Enable. And that drop down is where you would choose a different location if you're interested. Now, sometimes you may get this unknown error occurred. I've seen this happen occasionally, and typically this means that it actually did work, but you just need to refresh the page. So you'll see here we are now in the Firestore database. It's a little odd that it'll say the unknown error occurred, but regardless of whether or not you get an error, this is the page that you're going to land into. Now, when it comes to cost, we are going to be using a free tier, but I do want to show you the cost real quick. So if you go to the usage page, this is where you're going to see all of basically the metrics for your application. The ones that are relevant are reads, writes, and deletes. So if you click on billing, it's going to take us to this quotas page here, and you can learn more. But what we're going to do is you can scroll through and you can see view in billing, and you'll see the project plan. So we have a couple of options, but typically you're going to have either the Blaze plan, which is the pay as you go, or we will have the Spark plan, which is the one that is basically just completely free. So when you're logged in, we'll go over that in a little bit more detail in a little bit, but basically you're going to want to check and see what's going to be best for you. Now, the billing button could be in different areas of your screen, depending on what you're actually doing. So we're going to click right here for the upgrade button, and you'll see we have a couple of choices, or two to be specific. So our current plan, which is free, and then the Blaze, which is pay as you go. I highly recommend that you implement this application and use it before changing from the free plan. The reason is, when you're using the application, it's currently set up to refresh data regularly, meaning you do not need to refresh the page. Now, if you switch over to pay as you go, then as your company is using or as you are using the application, it'll be reading and writing if you just, for example, leave the application up. So if you leave it up for an hour, and let's just say the data refreshes every 5 seconds, it's going to be refreshing a lot and hitting that database regularly. So we'll look into plan details really quick. The good news is if you're on the free plan, then once you hit your limit, it'll just stop. The downside is that means the application is basically not working from that point on. So what we're going to cover really quickly is just this section here, which is Cloud Firestore. On the free plan, you'll get 20,000 document writes a day, 50,000 reads, and 20,000 deletes. That may seem like very high numbers, and you may think that you would never hit that, but bear in mind if you have even just 3 to 5 people using the application regularly, if they're staying on a page that's refreshing itself, which is what this application is doing, it could be very easy to hit these numbers. So I'll walk through a little bit later in the video when we get the application into Appgyver to show you how to reduce the reads and writes, etc. So next up, we're going to go to the rules real quick and enable the ability to read and write to this database. With this being said, I do not recommend that you do this particular part, but it is entirely up to you. Now, I'm selecting true. So basically what this statement says is allow read write if true. You may be wondering, what is if true? That's kind of the point. There are no restrictions. This sets your database up to be completely open. Anyone can read, anyone can write. So if someone gets your data, your URLs, etc., they can basically take that information. Now, there is the option you can look through the rules and you can set it up to where it is able to be accessed if the user's authorized. There's some other things, but I'm not covering that here. It could also require additional modifications in Firebase to send specific data. So I'm keeping mine open because I will cover this in a bit, but we're going to require users to log in and some other things. So we have minimal security. So that is the basics to getting Firestore set up. When we go to our database, if you want, you can start a collection. You don't need to do this part. In fact, I would recommend you don't. I do just want to show you how Firestore works really quickly. So I named a random collection and a random document, and I'm just going to put a couple of items in this. So if you want to add fields or remove them, you can do so here. I'm adding a sample collection just to show you what it looks like. For the ticketing app, the collections on the left are assigned to the categories. So for example, tickets submitted by user 1 or user 2, category tickets, priority tickets, etc. The documents are the actual items, in this case, tickets. And then the fields are the information related to the tickets, ticket name, description, etc. So the idea is in Appgyver, which I'll show you later, documents and repeats all of these documents in a given category, and then you can select them to view the individual values. The reason I'm showing you this is you can set your application up and manage the data on the back end if you prefer. So let's go ahead and jump straight into importing our app into Appgyver and getting all of this connected. All right, so now we are logged in to Appgyver. For those of you who are not familiar with the platform, you can head on over to appgyver.com. So I will actually just get that set up real quick and show you. When you go to the website, it could change over time, but there is a community edition down here, which is free to use. And then basically we're just clicking the login or sign up button. Now, this is a free platform. You can view their pricing page. I don't know if it'll change over time. They say that they're committed to keeping the free edition free. So as long as you're making 10 million or less in revenue, this is free for you. So what we're going to be doing is you'll set up your account. It does not require a credit card. It's some very basic information. Should take you no longer than 45 to 50 seconds to fill out. It'll land you in a dashboard just like this. So what we're going to be doing, you may have an app here already if you've used the platform. If not, then it should be empty, so you don't need to worry about it. So what we're doing at this point is we're going to click Create New, and then the name of your app. Now, this is important because obviously when you're exporting it, most of the information related to the app is going to be tied to this. So we will call it Ticket Management because that's the application we're using. And then you're going to find the Import from File option. Here we'll click Select File, and then at this point you need to find the file that you downloaded, which you'll see here is a GPG file. So we'll double click this and click Create. Now allow your machine some time to import everything. This is basically importing all of the functionality, the pages, the image assets, everything into Appgyver. What this is going to enable you to do is essentially get this application set up to edit if you need to. So you'll see we land in the application. So I'm going to cover the do's and don'ts for this, just to show how complex the application is and why I recommend you minimize the amount of changes that you make. So if you click on the top left, you'll see we have all of these pages in the app. I've left the demo pages, that way you can train employees or other people, but the idea is all of these are pages that are probably going to be needed. So what we can do is one change that you can feel free to make, first and foremost, is changing the pictures. So if you want to change a picture, you find the list item, you'll click right here, and you can choose from data variables if you want to pull from an outside source. You can paste in a URL here if you're interested, or you can select this button and upload images from your device. I recommend you do your best to slim down those images because if you're going to be maintaining this app online, large images mean that the application size is going to increase. So I just used Paint and reduced all of these images I got from unsplash.com and resized them and made them smaller. So you can just save those changes here, and you'll need to do that for every single page, or if you just want to do it on one page, then that's all there is to it. Now, some things you need to avoid doing in this app. First is when you see, or when you click the logic button, you do not want to edit logic for any components, and you don't want to delete them. If you do, you can't get them back. So in this case, I want to show you the backend logic for the create a ticket option, just to show how complex certain components can be. When I click on the submit button, and I click down here for show logic, you'll see that there is actually basically all of these things happening in the background. So all of this, all of these different parts here, saving different variables, doing different requests. So this is where the reads and the writes go up. When you're submitting a ticket, it's submitting to 3 different documents, deleting from different documents, updating, reporting. So there's a lot going on. Now, another thing, you'll see the save button regularly turn blue. If you haven't actually made a change, you don't need to worry about saving it. It's not going to let you jump between pages without saving changes. Okay, so we've basically covered what you can and cannot change. What you can change is you can change the text, you can change the style, you can click on page layout and change background colors and padding and things of that nature. Just make sure that you're not deleting elements, that you're not changing them to visible or invisible. That's going to cause some confusion. Now, what we're going to be doing next is we're going to cover the data setup and authentication. So we're going to walk through essentially how to manage this on your end. So first thing is first, we are going to jump on over to basically go to the authentication tab, and you'll see we already have this set up. Make sure you never remove this because it's going to be needed for your app. So now what we're going to do is we are going to basically set up authentication and kind of manage it. So the idea here is you're going to be saving all of your information from Firebase into this application. So the reasoning behind that is this is going to enable that connection so that information can be sent and also received, and your users can be set up as well. So when you click this variables slider here, you'll see that we already have a bunch of variables set up from when this application was built. So what we're going to do to get started is we're going to configure our data resources. So in this case, we're going to go to connectors, and we're going to replace all of this information. So what we're going to be doing here is removing all of this because this is connected to a test database, which will basically not be any good for you because I will likely be shutting that one down. It's just used for demos. So we are going to literally delete all of this information. And then what we're going to do shortly is go set it up. Basically, I'll walk you through that setup. So I recommend clicking save really quickly just so we can save that fresh, we'll just call it empty version of the app. So, whether or not you plan on using the app or Android, iOS or Android, I would still recommend following all of these steps just because it doesn't take that long. So now we're going to go into Firebase, and we are going to click on the top left just to go to the home page. Make sure you're in your project. So now what we're going to do is we're going to click the Add App, and we'll start with our Apple app. So you're going to name this following this general description. So I'll put com.codelessfix. We'll just call it ticket. And I'll copy this because we're probably going to use it later, and we'll just nickname it ticket. App Store ID, we do not have one. If you have an App Store ID or plan to upload this to the App Store, you would put this and make this relevant for your App Store file. Now we're going to click the next option. You'll see we get this Google Services info plist file, and then you can add this Firebase SDK if you need this before you export your app. And now I'm going to go back to our console. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat the process for Android, and I'll paste in that same name from earlier. I'll call this ticket. If you have that debug signing certificate, you can set that here. We will click Register App, and we will download the JSON file here and click Next. You can add the Firebase SDK if you need to. Click Next and continue to console. And we will do this one more time for our web app. So we're just going to nickname it Ticket. You can basically set up the Firebase hosting. So for all of these three options, set it up doing whatever is best for you and your company. And then we're just going to click Continue to Console. So we have now officially created those three apps in Firebase. So when you click here, you'll see each of the three of them. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off with our iOS one. So we'll go over here, and you'll see at the very top we have iOS App ID. So a couple of things that you're going to look for. Some of the details will be here, and then some of them you will actually need to download the file for. So you'll see when we scroll down, we have the app ID right here. So we will highlight and copy and paste it in here. And then it'll ask for the API key, which you'll see is not here. So we are going to open this file, which is the one for Apple. You can download, usually you should be able to download Notepad++, Notepad, or Visual Studio Code to open this. Don't get scared by all of this information. All you're looking for is the first time you see the text API key. So you can hit Control F, type in API, and you're only adding in the details in between these string sections. So you're not going to add in anything but these numbers and letters here. And I'll zoom in just to make sure that you're seeing everything that I'm selecting. You're using your API key, not mine. So we will close this after we've highlighted that and paste it in here. And then next we're looking for the client ID. Now you'll see it is also not here. So we'll basically just re-download that file and open it again. And you'll see we have a client ID, and the next section is the client ID. So we will copy that, and then we will paste it in here. Now we're going to repeat the process for Android. So you can go click on the Android section now, and if you ever need to download those files, they're right here. So first thing we're going to do is copy over our app ID and paste it in. Then we need our API key, which as you can see is not here, but we downloaded that JSON file earlier. And same process. So if we hit Control F and type in API, you'll see we have the API key right here. So all we need to do is copy what's in quotes. We'll close this and jump over here, paste it in, and now we need the client ID. Again, that is not listed here. So if you need to, you can download that JSON file once more, open it, and now you're looking for the client section, which is right here. So you'll see we have a couple of pieces of information. Now, down here we have the auth client. So the best way, if you're ever confused, is find client and then scroll through and see what makes the most sense for the field that you're looking to fill in. Now, if you notice, when we're going through this, we have the OAuth client and then the services. Now you'll see that right here we have this really long string. It ends with 78D1NE, which is also right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to double check where the client info is, because we are basically trying to find out what matches up with really what we are looking for. So if you're scrolling through, you'll see that under services we have two different client IDs. So to help reduce some confusion, what we're going to do is you're looking for the top one. So we're looking for the OAuth client. That's the one that we're going to use here. If you ever have issues, you can always go back and change it out and swap for the other. But we are just going to use this first one since it's also set up exactly the way that we need it. And we'll close this and paste in the client ID here. And then we are going to do the final steps for the web app, which usually is a little bit easier because all the information's already right here. So first thing we need is the ID and the API key. So you'll see we have the app ID right here. And we will then paste in the API key. And when we scroll down, we have these last remaining fields. So project ID, which is right here. And this is best if you're just setting up your app as a web app. Now we will also need this app ID. And actually we've already done the app ID. So now we need the measurement ID. And we need the auth domain and storage bucket. So we have auth domain here. And I know this seems a little bit tedious, but you only have to do this once. So usually once you've done that, you're all set. So we will copy this, paste it into storage bucket, and then we will swap out the message sender ID as well. So when you're scrolling through, you're looking for that message sender ID, and you will paste that in here. And that is all that there is to it. I know that's quite a few steps, but this way you're set up so that you don't have to worry about users being registered to the wrong Firebase project. So now that you have saved that, the next thing that we're going to do is go into data resources. And this is another one that has quite a bit of work associated, but it's a one-time setup. So you are going to need to swap out sample do not delete in this URL here with the corresponding URL or name of your project. So in this case, you'll see that mine is FDS FSFD. You'll typically see it somewhere up here as well. So we're going to copy this and go through, and anywhere you see sample do not delete, we'll paste this in. I recommend clicking save every time just to be safe. So we're going to do it for category closed, category open. And you don't want to paste in over those quotes. You just want to paste in between the dashes exactly as I'm doing. And what this is effectively going to be doing is this is making sure that it's accessing the correct project for your company. So this is part of that whole bring your own database piece. You get to keep all of the data. So again, since I clicked out real quick, we'll just click data again. So now we're just going to go to home tickets, and this is just doing this for each of these categories. All right, now one thing to note when you are setting up your data variables, you're using something called the data configurator. So with this step, I highly recommend you double check your Firebase project name. One thing to note here is my project name is right here. However, if you look down here next to this little icon, you'll see there's a dash and some additional characters. So if you're going through the process of updating all of these like I did, and then you get an error, it's because you put your project name right here, but not the official one down here assigned by Firebase. To double check this, if you look at your URL to the right of the word project, in between these two forward slashes, there's the project name in full. So make sure that you're updating and adding in the correct project name, especially if you see some error messages popping up. And I would recommend that you double check once you've finished, basically just to make sure that you have done everything correctly. Now, if you want, I'm going to go through this. I'm not going to speed up the video or anything, but feel free to fast forward a little bit so that you can kind of get past this part and get on to the next part once you're done with this step. We're going to test this really quickly to see if I don't save it, if it'll keep the information. It looks like it does, so we won't be saving moving forward until the very end. So we are wrapping this up. So once we have finished all of them, we'll allow it a moment to save, and then we'll just click a random one just to make sure everything's set up. So now that we have all of the configuration set up, we are going to begin basically populating the database. So what we're going to do next is we are going to walk through getting Firebase set up and making sure that it's sending and receiving data correctly. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started testing things out and kind of finalizing this application. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to launch really quickly, and you're going to click Open App Preview Portal. From here, you'll select the application, and this is going to open up basically like a test page that Appgyver is providing. So you'll see we have an image up here if you want to update this with your company logo or whatever information. Over here on the tree, you're going to make sure that we're in the Firebase page. So you click up in the top left in Appgyver and then find Firebase authentication. And then from this point, you'll see that we have this menu here. When you expand it, you're going to look for image 1. It is not visible, but all you need to do if you want to upload a file from your computer is select this and choose the file to upload, or you can choose and paste in a URL here, whichever you prefer. So what we're going to do is, before we try to get logged in, we need to update one variable in the app. So we are going to click on this slider, and when you find the app variables, which is basically this, just the default one, the API key here is one that you're going to want to update. So you're going to find the API key and click it, and then Control A and delete the initial value. That's a sample value. We need to upload or update from Firestore. So what we'll do is over here in Firebase, when you're in the Firestore database, you have a couple choices. I would recommend just clicking the settings option, and then you'll see we have a web API key right here. We can just paste that in, the sample value or the initial value. So you'll see we have it saved in right here, and we'll just click save. So what this is going to do is save in the API key so that we're sending our credentials to the correct account. So now in Appgyver, in this preview tab, it should update within a couple seconds of you saving changes. So we will now type in a sample email address. So the idea here is we are going to try to find an address or make an account. So we have a couple options. So first things first, we're going to type in an email address that we could not verify. So for example, a@a.com. When we click login, we get an error. If we click create new account, we'll get a little pop-up saying verification email sent. So what we're going to do now is we're going to try to verify an email, because now we still can't log in. Please verify your email before logging in is the message we get. So let's try this email address. So I'm going to try to log in. Authentication failed. So I'm going to click create account. And you'll see that a verification email has been sent. So this typically, I would say this honestly gets sent within the first probably couple of minutes of actually submitting the request. So then at this point on Firebase, while we're waiting for that request to come through, you'll see we have 2 user accounts that have populated here. And you'll see when we try to log in, because I haven't verified yet, I still get that message. But we do see support@codelessfix.com. Now, if you ever have users that have any issues, you can reset their password, disable or delete their accounts here. So that's just one of a few options that you have to basically just get your users kind of verified. So now we're going to go ahead and show you how to change that verification email, because the default one is not the most aesthetically pleasing. So when you go to authentication, you go to templates in Firebase, you have your email verification. So you'll see where it comes from, reply to, subject name, and then the message. So you can update some aspects of this. I would be careful trying to change everything, because you do still want them to actually use the verification button. But the idea here is this can update that a little bit to make it look like it's not coming from some kind of just bland looking service, so to speak. So you do have the ability to update and change that as you see fit. All right, so the email came through, so we're going to go ahead and click login, and you'll see the login page is loaded. So a couple things I'm going to cover here. If you notice on the login page, there was an icon. So just to cover one, just to make sure that we're fully understanding how a lot of these pages work, there are sometimes some things that can be hidden in the app, but there's one place they will always show up. So instead, what we're going to do really quickly is just go back over this Firebase authentication page, because there are a couple things to note. So when we expand all of these menus, you'll see a ton of fields, some of which may not show up on the left-hand side. For example, the image here is this one, and you can just click here to update that image, or you can paste in a URL in this text box here and click save. Now, when you are going through this application, there are a couple other things that you can set up. So I would recommend setting up your own terms and conditions and your own privacy policy, as the ones that are set up here by default are obviously not going to be functional for your organization. And to do that, you can just access those pages in these menus here. Now, next up, I will actually probably be just deleting those from the app to make sure that you're using yours from scratch. Now, the next thing is we have a couple of things that'll show up when you've actually logged into the application itself. So what we're going to do is we'll log in, and you'll see in the home page we have no data available set here and an image down here with some other default text. So when we expand this menu and we go home, we have this data resource here, which when we set up information, it's pulling from default location that I have set up. You'll paste in the image URLs right here, but you'll see in our configuration that it's pulling in some information from a database that's already been set up. So we'll get that set up and working in a minute. But for now, if you need to update this image here, you can click this little image asset and add in an image. And then you can update the information here by simply clicking each component and typing in the new text and clicking save. So that's how you're going to update everything here. Now let's jump back into things. So now we need to get Firebase set up. So we're going to click on the ticket management tool and go to my organization. Now, first thing, remember we're getting our Firebase project ID. So this is this text right here. So I'm going to expand this because, as I previously discussed, we can grab it in the URL. And then I'm going to go to connect your Firebase database. So initial setup will basically take you to this video. We don't really need that. Then we're going to paste in our Firebase project and click Add Profile Details in Firebase. You'll see it says Updated. So if we refresh over here on the right, which is not always needed, but in this case it will be, you'll see we now have profile details. This is going to be our user ID, which is stored in Firebase. And then this is all of the fields that people can update as they see fit. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to click Set Up Reporting. You'll see it says Success, and when we refresh on the right-hand side, we now have even more collections. So we have reporting on basically 6 different areas: category closed, category open, priority closed, priority open, user closed, user open. So now what we're going to do is we are going to go back and we are going to set up a couple of additional things here. So now once we've finished the setting up of the reporting, we're going to go over here and we're going to generate the organization ID. So up top, we'll just click this button here, click OK, and it's going to show some additional text, and we'll just click Save ID, and you'll see we need to go to our profile page to update the profile. This is where we're going to save some additional pieces of information. The username is hard-coded in the app, although that can be changed, and basically we'll just click Update here. And you'll see everything's updated on the right-hand side in our profile. So now we will go back and click on My Organization once more. And we just have the final step down here, which is Add Collections. Again, all of these steps you only want to do once. So my recommendation is once all of these are set up, you'll see multiple pop-ups because it's sending a lot of data. At this point, I would recommend in the app, if you can, going to My Organization, and I would just hide this button. So you can disable it or you can make it hidden. If you disable and go to True, you should do that for this and this generate organization ID. You can disable both and save. That way no one in your company can accidentally run through this setup again because it'll generate even more data. So we're going to refresh this page just to show you all of the new categories that have been created and break it down real quick. So basically you'll see that we have ticket category and then a very long ID. And then you'll see ticket category again, and basically each of these is followed by this very long ID. And the idea behind that is the ID is an extra layer of, we'll just call it security. So you'll notice over here we have this 5670 ID, and over here we have this 5670. So what's essentially been done here is reporting is not really something I'm too worried about security on. It's mainly this. So when we've posted these categories, we have ticket category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, followed by the organization ID, and then the same for all of these. So basically user 2, user 3, user 4, user 5, all of these, it's the category name and then a unique ID for the company. That way it makes it even harder for people to find this information if that's a concern. So at this point, we have completely set up Firebase on the back end, and now we're going to go through and start populating data within the application and kind of walking through how to get this set up. All right, so next thing that we are going to be doing, and this is because I think it's easier if only one person manages this part of the application. So we have this add front page item option. Now what this does is this actually expands a hidden container and makes it visible. So if you scroll all the way down when you're in the home page of the app and you see button 2, and that is called Update. When we click expand in the logic menu, there's just one thing that this button is doing. It's posting to this URL with a unique ID. So I think it's best if only one person manages this, so that's why it's not set up to do it in the app. So what you need to do is right here, where it says sample do not delete, paste in this project from your Firebase, so just your Firebase project. and then you would click Save. Now you'll notice here it's going to generate a unique ID, so every employee is not going to have access to this, and that's basically by default, and that's for a reason. So when we click Save here, you'll see that our application on this screen typically will refresh, and nothing has changed. But now when we click Add Front Page Item, so if we were to call the title, subtitle, we'll just put here is some text, and then label this content, and then we'll just put a bunch of random letters. Now, the thumbnail URL would be important. That's basically a URL to essentially anything that you think would be useful. So in this place, we'll go to unsplash.com, and we'll try to find, let's see, we'll try to find a cool image. So this is just an image of a random company. So we'll right click and we will click copy image address, because this app does not send or save physical pictures. So what we will do is in the thumbnail URL, we'll paste the URL to the image, and then we'll paste the image URL here, and then ID I'll just put 1, and we'll click update. So now if we refresh this page over here, you'll see we have the update and we have the content here. So now we will refresh the home page. And you'll see we now have that update. Now, this may look really large in the beginning, but the idea behind this is as new items are added, so let's just say we add in more information, and then if we'll just add in the same image, and we'll put image ID 2, and click update, a new document is created, but instead of making this giant scrolling page, when we expand it, you'll see that we have these two documents side by side. And then when you click them, it's just going to take you to the demo page. So the idea here is, as you're adding these, they'll be expanded. So now that this has been set up, in the future, if you want to add a new document, I'll show you the idea behind this. You can now go into the app and hide this button by clicking right here and clicking disabled true so that people can't click it. And then what you can do, or you can hide it if you want under advanced properties and make it invisible. So now what you can do is to add documents here. I'll keep this page pulled up. I will find a new image in Unsplash, so we'll just pick this one. That one's actually an ad, so we'll pick this one, and we will copy image address. So you can add new documents in here now and update the fields. So if you want, you can basically just recreate. You can add a new document with all of these, and then you can just update the information on the back end. So for example, if you see right here, we have two of the same picture. If I wanted to update this, we can click paste. And now when I go back to our home page, that image has updated. I personally think it looks best when you have 3. It'll have 3 updates side by side on most standard computers. And the idea here is just you can use this for company updates. So use this however you see fit, or if you don't see value in it, then you can just delete the entire thing by scrolling to the top and clicking here and just clicking delete. So it's entirely up to you. It's much harder to add it back after the fact though. So I would recommend, if you don't want it, instead change visible to false, and you can just hide features of the app you don't like and come back to them later. Okay, so time to go ahead and start testing out this application a little bit. So when we go over here, the first thing I would recommend is try creating a ticket and see if you can actually create and assign out your tickets. If we go into the reporting, you'll notice that we have 100% across the board, and that's because by default, one of the things that we had to do was actually create these fields. So you can go through and delete. You don't want to delete the collection. You want to delete the document. This should be a one-time thing for all of these. In all the only ones that you're updating or deleting are going to be the category closed, category open, priority open, and then priority closed, and then user closed and user open. The reason here is every time one of these is detected, the reporting is going to say, okay, there is a closed ticket. And I'll show you basically how this works in a second. So what we're going to go ahead and do is try to test out the actual create a ticket process. All right, so we have a couple more pieces of setup, but I want to walk you through basically what we've done so far. So if you go to the My Profile page, you'll actually see your organization ID right here. I highly recommend that you copy this elsewhere because it's going to be very, very important in the future, as well as your Firebase project. And I mean copy it outside of the app just to keep it safe. Now, one more thing that we need to do in the setup page, and I'll walk you through this by expanding this window, is you'll see right here we have basically the URL to our Firebase collection. So if you don't remember how to get to this, you can just click Data up top, and all of the data resources are listed. Now, when we go to Ticket Category 1, I've already updated this before this video, and you'll see it's much longer. But if we go to Ticket Category 2, it's just Ticket Category 2. Now, in the app, if we go to our ticket categories, you'll see in Category 1, I have tickets, but in Category 2, it can't read them. Or it could be that there are none, but in this case, it can't read them. So what we're going to do, and the reason this is set up like this, is that security measure I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to expand Firebase here and show you. In this case, we have Ticket Category 1, and it's followed by this really long series of text. So you'll see Ticket Category 1, and then it says 5670, all those characters. Now you'll notice if we go to our settings page, that's the same series of digits here. So basically, to find this information, people would essentially need this ID. So what we're going to be doing is copying this. So you can copy it from the app if you prefer, but I know that if I find Ticket Category 1, if I go up here to the URL, you'll see right here it says Ticket Category 1, and everything to the right of that up to this little squiggle or dash here is going to be the ID. So what we're looking for, we're going to click copy, but we're looking, it starts in 56 and ends in 0D. So I will move this over and you'll see here, starts in 56, ends in 0D. So I have the right info. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our data tab and we're going to find Ticket Category 1. We're going to go down to Get, and we're going to paste it in right after Ticket Category 1. So this right here is what you should have so far. You're just pasting your organization ID in. And you're going to repeat this for Ticket Category 1 through 5, Ticket Priority 1 through 5, and then User Ticket 1, which is up here, and then User Ticket 2 through 5. So we'll walk through the first couple together. So I'm going to Ticket Category 2. I'm going to Get Collection, and I'm just pasting this in. And then I'm going to go to Ticket Priority 1, going to Get Collection. I'll paste this in. And then I'm going to go to Ticket Priority 2, Get Collection, paste this in. And then User Ticket 1, or User 1 Ticket, Get Collection, paste it in. And then we'll paste it in for one more just to kind of show how this works. And then we're going to click Save. Now I've done it for Ticket Category, Ticket Priority, and User 1 and 2. You'll need to make sure, again, you do it for Ticket Category 1 through 5, Ticket Priority 1 through 5, and then User 1 Ticket, and User 2, 3, 4, and 5 ticket. And then just click Save when you're done, and make sure you're pasting it in the right area. So now we're going to test the functionality. So we're going to go to our ticket setup. We are going to go to Tickets by Assignee and User Ticket, User 1 Ticket. We'll see that there is a ticket here. And we're going to go to User 2. There are none. and then we're going to go to ticket categories. So ticket category 1 has 2. Ticket category 2 just has this 1. And then we will go to ticket priorities, and you'll see priority 1 has these 2, and then priority 2 just has this 1. So at this point, we're going to test creating and adding tickets. And we're going to check reporting as well. So you can ignore the fields at the bottom. We just want to see the ticket numbers. So you'll see that we basically have open and closed tickets here. So we have the totals as 1 and 0 for closed tickets. So we will go back here, and basically at this point we're just going to try to submit a ticket and see what happens. So we'll create a ticket. We'll call this newest. Ticket description, we'll just type in some letters. These fields are whatever you want. You need to assign it to a user. So we will choose user 2, category 2, and priority 2 because those have the least number of tickets. We'll type in something random. If you do not have an image URL, it will assign one by default, and we'll click submit, and you'll see it says posted. So now if we go to tickets by assignee, you'll see user 2 tickets. We have that newest ticket right here. Now when I go back to tickets by category, category 2, newest is right here. And lastly, when I go to ticket priorities, priority 2, newest is right here. So the idea here is if we were to go create a different ticket and we were to name this a bunch of letters, type in a different description, and if we assigned this to user 1 but category 2 and priority 2, and what we'll do here is we'll actually put in a really long series of numbers so that we can clearly differentiate this. And we click submit. We are going to go back to tickets by assignee. So you'll see if we go to user 1, it's right here. It is not in the user 2 field, which is expected. And then if we go to category 2, it's down here. And if we go to priority 2, it's down here. Now, the best part about this is this shows that this is working. So let's double check on reporting. So if we want to see open ticket numbers, we now see that we have a total of 3. And we have a total of 3 by priority and a total of 3 by user. The totals in all categories should always be the same because you are not allowed to submit a ticket without a priority, category, and user. Then you will also see the totals down here. And these will change. You'll notice the first 2 are the same, but the last one is not, and that's because one of those users was separate from the others. Now, one thing to note here is this information is being pulled from, if we scroll through, we're going to go over to Firebase really quickly. And if you look, again, we have 6 categories for reporting. So if we have category closed, we have category open. So you'll see for open, we have these 2 numbers. We have 1 and 2. And that's because we're making some test tickets, which you're probably going to be doing in the beginning. So you also have priority open and priority closed. And then you have user open and user closed down at the bottom. Now, here is my recommendation for this. Because you're going to make some test tickets and you don't want to mess up reporting, finish all of your testing for this app and then come back and click in this field and reset the values to 0. The way the app works is it's going to, every time a ticket is submitted, it's going to add, it gets all this information and just adds 1 per section. So if you reset all these to 0, don't delete them. Just click here and update the value and click update. When you do that, it will reset the reporting to 0. So now at this point, what we are going to do is we're going to walk through ticket management. So if you click on your ticket home page, and you can click here to create a ticket as well, but we'll go to our ticket home page, and let's just say I'm assigned all priority 1 tickets, or category 1 tickets. I'm going to go in, and let's just say this is at the top of my priority list. I'm going to click this ticket, And now I have all of these details and updates, as well as the default image because I neglected to add one myself. Now, if I click the update button, I have the ability to change the name. And if I would like, I can add some additional details. So for example, update 1, update 2, maybe I want to skip a couple and add some updates down here. And then I can click submit. You'll see it says updated. And at this point, we can go over here. If you're interested, you can kind of follow along on this side. All right, so to make it a little bit easier, I'm going to walk through the process start to finish or the life of a ticket. So we are going to go to the Create a New Ticket tab, and then the ticket name, we'll just name it 1212, and we'll do the same for the description so it's easier to find later. Type in some random letters in the ticket type. We're going to assign it to 2, since as we just saw, there is no tickets assigned there. And then we'll do user 2, category 2, priority 2. So we're going to click submit, and you'll see it pops up here. Now, one thing to note, just so you can kind of backtrack and find things if you ever need to, is we have a couple of ticket categories. So here we have ticket category 2. You'll see the document ID in ticket 42. It starts with 52E. Now, if we go to ticket category 2, you'll see we also have 52E, and ticket priority 2, we have 52E. So now, if we were to go, and you have to typically do it by page, it's a little bit easier. So let's go to ticket 42 to make sure everything's lining up. So we have this document, so we're going to go, and in the back end, let's just change the field for 3. We'll click update. And then down here, we're going to put close the ticket, just to let the person know that they can do that. So now, when we click on the ticket, you'll see down here, those updates appear. So now we can go to update ticket, and we can go down to close. Now you'll see the ticket is removed from this category, and we will go to ticket category 2 as well. And basically what we're going to do is make sure that 51 or whatever that number document was is gone. So ticket priority 2 is also, it no longer has that document. So now we'll go back to user 2 tickets, and you'll see that that is now gone. So at this point, the full cycle works. So now if we go to close tickets and we try to find it, again, it was 1212. We'll click it, and you'll see that we have all the information here still. That way closed tickets don't just disappear. Now if you click update ticket, by default the only option is going to be delete. It's set up to where if a ticket is in the closed category, then it's going to not allow you to update the ticket to avoid issues with metrics. Now, a couple of things to note. I recommend deleting these tickets as kind of like a month-end reporting thing, just so you avoid any potential issues when it comes to reporting or performance. You don't want to have thousands of tickets just floating around in each of these 5 categories. So if we were to go to delete, we will find that ticket in the actual closed category first, just to show that this function works. I believe it was the last ticket. You'll see ticket description 1212. So I'll click delete. Now, one thing to note is this does not remove it from the report. So all open and closed tickets stay open or closed. And we'll click OK. And now that ticket is deleted from the system. And just as a safety precaution, we have a deleted tickets section in the backend that is not visible from the UI. So you cannot view any of the deleted tickets. You'll see once they're deleted, they are gone. So over here, if we look for the deleted ticket, you'll see we have 1212. So there's this little catch-all, just in case tickets do get deleted, you'll still have that information. So now let's go through the process. We're going to reset reporting. So let's just say it's month end, you want to get an idea of what's open, what's closed. So again, we have 6 categories. So we have category closed. We're going to reset this by just deleting the values and clicking update. Do not delete any fields, just delete the value. We'll go and make sure you don't delete this URL either. So closed is done. We're going to change category open. And then we are going to change priority closed. And then priority open. All right. And again, you don't even have to put a 0. You can just put nothing. So priority closed and priority open, and then do not forget user closed and user open. And I'll get that one remaining number that I just missed. So again, this would be an easy way to reset reporting at the end of the month. Make sure you calculate your totals before you do that. And we'll put this to 0. So now reporting is officially reset. So if we go to the reporting tab, make this full screen, you'll see all of the bars are set to 100% because there's no values there. Now I know that this is a little bit difficult to basically view. So if you're interested, you do have these little hide buttons to make it look a little bit easier. So if we click Show Open Ticket Numbers, you'll see we have 0 across the board. Show Closed Ticket Numbers, we have 0 across the board once more. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go open 2 tickets and then close 2 tickets and watch what the numbers look like. So we're going to create a ticket. Ticket name, we'll make it some random letters. We all know the process, and we're going to set it for user. We're going to mix it up a bit. So we'll make it user 1, category 2, priority 2. Submit. And check reporting. And you'll see category 2, priority 2, user 1, and the totals are 1 across the board. And this number has now changed. So as a percent of category, 100% of the tickets are for 2, and then 100% are for 2 priority, and then 100% for priority 1, or user 1, sorry. So let's go back, and we will show a good and bad part of the system. So now we're going to go to create ticket, and let's change this up a bit. So we will put in some information. We'll make this user 1, category 1, just to kind of mix up the numbers a bit. So it's been posted. So we'll go back to reporting. Now you'll see we have some 50%, but we do have one that still has 100%. So we have 1 ticket for each of these categories, and then 2 tickets for this one. And if you want to see the raw figures, so you'll see down here the closed are still messed up because there's no closed tickets. So we can click Open Ticket Numbers, and you'll see the breakdown, basically, of how those graphs get that 100%. And then closed ticket numbers are still zeros across the board. So now the last thing that we're going to do is close a ticket and just see how the reporting changes and give you an idea of kind of how to understand it. So if we go to category 2 tickets, and if we were to find one of the ones that we just had, we'll click Update and Close. You'll see it's updated. So now we'll go back to reporting, and you'll see that across the board, the open ticket numbers are still the exact same. And there's a reason for that. It's not set up to subtract, it's only set up to add and log. So the idea here is when we go to close tickets, you'll see we have 100% across the board, 100% across the board. And so to view the numbers, you can see that we have 2 tickets in each category that are open or were open. And then closed tickets, we have 1, 1, 1. So if we go close one more ticket, for example, and so this one is that one was actually made before I made some of the database changes, so that one's a little bit messed up. So we will close this one, making sure that we're finding one that was essentially done before the change. So that was actually, I believe it was user 1 tickets for that. So that should be this one right here. And you'll see right now the reason one of those had a delete button and then another one didn't is I was messing around in the back end. So you can already see how changes in the back end can mess with the UI. if again, the reporting, it was showing that I only had 1 or 2 per category. So if you open a ticket that was deleted from reporting or messed up in any way, it can obviously mess up how the system works. So in this case, I'm going to close this ticket. You'll see it's been updated. Now when I go to reporting, you'll see the open ticket numbers have not changed. The idea here is you always want open and closed to match. That means that every ticket that's been opened has also been closed. Now, if you need to know how many have been open, again, all of the numbers are always going to match because you cannot submit a ticket without a category or priority. So we have category 1 and 2. The total is 2, so you'll see the total is the same across the board. And then if we go to close tickets, the total is 2 because I opened and closed both. Now, in the case that we opened 10 and we only closed 1, it doesn't really matter which of these you go by as long as you're going by the total figure. So in this case, the total for user matches the total for user. So I have closed all the tickets that I have opened. If there's a discrepancy between the two, then you know, okay, there's more open tickets than closed. And then at the end of the month, you can just delete those tickets on the back end or go in on the front end, bearing in mind that when you delete them in the UI or in the interface, it does not alter reporting, and that's by design. And you can also only delete a closed ticket. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions on changes or ways that this can be customized, feel free to reach out. You can again go to codelessfix.com. There's a form there to contact us and reach out to learn more.